This is Marin's new lightweight electric mountain bike called the Rift Zone EL. It's a full 29er, it's aluminium frame, and it's using Bosch's lightweight SX motor system. In this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about Marin's new Rift Zone EL.
Although this bike weighs 21 kilos, which doesn't exactly make it a super light e-bike, it's almost 5 kilos lighter than Marin's full power Rift Zone. That drop in weight makes a huge difference to how this bike feels out on the trails, but more on that later. The weight saving comes down to some smart changes. Marin has removed the bigger motor and battery from the full power version in favour of Bosch's Performance Line SX motor, which is both smaller and lighter. It's paired with a 400 watt-hour battery, which keeps the bike weight down and the aesthetics more svelte, without sacrificing too much range.
So I've just done a couple of little trails on the bike, and it reminds me so much of the previous Alpine trail bike, and by that I mean really poppy and playful. It actually says made for fun on the stem cap, and these bikes they feel really fun to ride. This is agile, lively and playful. It's only got 140mm travel at the rear, which is shorter than I would usually ride, and 150 on the front, and a short 440 chainstay. But what that means is the bike feels like it wants to pop and move around, and the back kind of gets a little bit skittish, almost on the verge of like being slightly out of control, but fun. Like, it feels like it wants to rip and move around quite a lot. Now, this isn't going to be that downhill brawler that's just going to smash through everything. This is a type of bike, like a nippy little speedboat, that kind of darts around and moves and kind of gets chucked around by some of the trail chatter and the rocks and stuff. But that makes it feel really lively and agile, and actually just a totally different experience to some of the heavier, bigger travel e-bikes that are out there. The first trail I was like, this feels like it rips. It's not got the beefiest tyre out the back, so the rear starts to lose traction a little bit, but I actually think that makes the character of the bike kind of shine a little bit more, because as soon as you start putting heavier, burlier components on here, it starts to deaden the ride down a little bit. So first impressions are, it feels like a lively, nippy and agile little trail bike, and I agree with Marin's statement, made for fun. Like all of their bikes, they are real fun machines. They're never going to win things like the spec wars or the weight wars or the biggest travel, because that's not what they're about. They're just about designing cool bikes that ride really well, that put a smile on your face.
Of course, a lighter motor puts out quite a bit less power on the climbs, so dispatching with long climbs takes a lot more rider effort, and it ends up being slower compared to its full power brother on the steeper climbs.
So the bike's using Bosch's SX motor system, which offers 55 Newton meters of torque and up to 600 watts of peak power. The 600 watts of peak power is the same as a full-size, full-fat e-bike, but you need to spin a lot faster on this bike to get that full power. So you end up working a bit harder on this and spinning a bit quicker. Now, low down, the power's not huge. There's not a lot of torque when you're spinning at low cadence. So you really do have to give it some cadence to unleash the full power from the motor. That being said, it's nice to have up to 600 watts available, which is more than most of the other e-bike systems out on the market. And it's a fairly quiet drive unit. Under full power, there's just a small amount of noise that you can hear. They've done a really good job with the noise levels from it. Downhill, there's a little bit of rattle, very, very small amount. You have to listen out for it. But it is there, it's just in the background. You can kind of hear it if you want to, but a lot of the time it disappears into the trail noise and the kind of chatter of the tyres on the dirt. The Bosch system controller is pretty neat, integrated up here, and it's got a nice neat little remote. It's Bluetooth, completely wireless. You can run without that if you want a super clean look. The bike's got a 400 watt-hour battery that can be removed. I'll show you a bit later on in the video. You can get the range extender as well, which gives an additional 250 watt-hours. But the Bosch system is neat. I like it. I like the performance of it. It's a decent lightweight motor system that is compact, it's small. The power delivery is very refined. Bosch's power delivery on their motors is so smooth and so predictable. It's just very user friendly. I have found myself just riding in the eMTB mode and the turbo mode, so the two higher modes. I find that For me, I want to have some electrical assistance from the motor, and the lower modes, the Eco and Tour Plus, they just require quite a lot more effort. They are going to give you a bit more range and a bit more battery life, but I find for my rides that are typically 1 to 2 hours, riding in the 2 top modes is going to give me enough battery energy to complete like a 1 to 2 hour ride easily.
The bike I'm riding in size XL has got a pretty long reach of 520mm and a short 440mm chainstay, one of the shortest you'll find on a 29er e-bike. This combination really stands out on the trails. For my size, the short chainstay made the bike feel incredibly nimble and agile, but it did require some focus to get weight onto the front tyre, especially in flat corners. The weight bias felt a little bit rearward on the XL frame, which meant I had to stay engaged to keep the front end dialed in. The suspension is quite sensitive, the rear wheel felt very planted even on some of the rougher sections. It strikes a good balance between offering enough feedback through the chassis without feeling too harsh. The geometry is definitely geared towards playfulness, so the bike never felt sluggish or slow on the descents. If I'm being picky, a beefier rear tyre would definitely be a better choice for the UK, especially in the winter muddy conditions, but on dry trails, the stock setup was more than adequate.
So the spec on this bike is pretty good for the money. I think it represents decent value for money. This comes with a Fox 36 Performance Elite, which is essentially the same as a factory version, just with a black stanchion instead of Kashima, but the internals are identical. The shock is also a Fox Float X Performance, and the rear suspension performance is really decent on this, considering it's only got 140mm of travel, and a lot of e-bikes I ride have more rear travel. It doesn't feel like it's lacking in this trail centre here. 2929, the front is a Maxxis Minion DHF Max Grip Exo Plus, totally suitable for this bike. The rear is a forecaster. There's not a huge amount of big blocky tread on it, and I've been surprised with how well it's performed in the dry. I do think over the winter and when it gets a little bit wet, it might be on the edge, and it's perhaps something that I change out for a Maxxis DHR. But again, Exo Plus Max Terra casing is performed really well today actually. I've been really impressed with it, but I would definitely change it out for the winter. We've got SRAM's transmission. This is a GX transmission. It represents great value for money. In terms of the performance, it's near identical to the more expensive XO and XX. In fact, I can't tell a difference in shifting performance at all. It's mainly just aesthetics and weight. It's got SRAM GX cassette on it. I love the transmission stuff. It works brilliantly, super clean. It's just shifts on full power without kind of skipping or making any noise. It just is a great performer. It's got Magura MT7 brakes, and I really like these HC3 levers that you get stock. Quite often on Maguras, you have to buy the additional levers and they can add up in price, but this comes stock with HC3 levers. You've got 3-way adjustability on the brake levers, and they're pretty good in terms of stopping performance, certainly for this bike, like more than adequate. Comes with 200mm rotor front and rear. They are making a little bit of metallic sound in. I think it's probably got sintered pads in as standard, which for winter riding would be quite good, but they are a little bit noisy. Bars, stem and grip are all Marin's in-house stuff, but it looks really good. It looks just as premium as some of the high-end brands that you might buy aftermarket. The stem is really nicely CNC machined. The bars have got this nice matte finish on them with some nice Marin graphics, and it's got a decent rise and back sweep. And the grips are actually brilliant. I'm a big fan of Marin's in-house stuff. It's got a PNW dropper post on it and PNW dropper lever. So this is a very decent spec. Out the box, there's nothing you're going to need to do other than maybe a rear tyre when it starts to get a little bit looser and a little bit wet. But just out the crate, this is a great spec. I'm really impressed with what they've done on this and what they've achieved on it. I'll show you the Bosch stuff on it. If I just turn the bike around, we've got the Bosch little charge port just down here, and we'll take the battery out. I'll show you how easy it is to remove that. So I'm just going to turn the bike upside down, but on Bosch bikes and most bikes with these controls, you just got to be careful. But little tip, if you don't do these up super tight, you can just maneuver it around on the bars so it doesn't get squashed when I turn the bike upside down. swing them up. We'll just take this single bolt out down here. So this just pops off here, this little skid plate, and then there's a little kind of latch on here. We'll just press that down and the battery should slide out. So removable battery, really easy to remove. And if you've got a spare in the car, pretty quick. Pop this back. There we go, just a single bolt there, pretty straightforward.
I really appreciate Marin's no-nonsense approach to their e-bikes. Everything on the bike has a purpose. There's nothing added just for the sake of it. The spec and value for money are spot on, and most importantly, it rides well. The geometry choices give it a surprisingly agile feel, making it a blast on the fast and flowy trails. The Bosch SX motor is a great fit for lightweight eMTBs like this. Offers a decent balance of power and natural assistance, but if you're looking for something to winch you up the steepest climbs with minimal effort, then it isn't that kind of bike. This is about fun, playful riding with a more involved, active experience, and that's exactly what the Marin Rift Zone EL delivers.